We want to make sure we welcome everybody as you're coming in. Let us know where you're coming from. We have tons of agency participation in these interagency briefings on AI. It's a big, big deal. There's a group of people with one of the organizations here. We appreciate you guys joining us. And I think there's probably going to be some additional conversations after this that you're going to want to direct some things in that agency, because you don't have, 18 people from the same agency if they don't have a problem or not looking for a solution. So we just want to welcome everybody. We know that you have a lot of things to do, especially this time of year. So we appreciate you joining us. A quick disclaimer as we get started from GSA, because you guys are GSA contract holders, and it's not an endorsement. It's informational purposes only. You guys can participate without endorsing or even intending to endorse anybody. So there you go. If you would like to participate with us, we love this. We love participation. You can raise your hand. You can pop it in the Q&A. We will also provide some resources at the end that we'll send out to everybody. But if you need something in private, send it to jeff.lanham@divihn.com, DivIHN, pronounced divine. And you can, if you want to take a picture of that real quick before we jump off, that way you have it. And we asked this question coming in. This will be the best briefing ever. Breaks down sci-fi from reality. Oh, is there any stuff like that happening? I can't imagine. Daniel from EPA addresses AI and government contract administration. Certainly can do that. Julie from VA, how to protect myself in the future. A lot of concerns about protection, right, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very big topic.
And a lot of folks with Jerry as well. I hear that AI will not take any jobs from any federal employees. And you got something to say about that real quick? You want to address that one on the head-to-head?
Yeah, I think the thing to think about there is that AI probably won't directly replace people per se, but it, definitely will be a distinction between people that understand how to work with and how to utilize AI and those that do not. So I think the best thing you can do is understand this technology, get into using it some, as we're going to show you how today, and be one of the people that's helping lead this and use this, as opposed to one of the ones that might get rolled over by it. So
ooh. Yep, because there's not a lot of people that are riding horses anymore. There's not a lot of people that are doing steam trains. So there you go. It is new technology, and it is. I don't think it's going anywhere. Do you, Jeff?
No.
So, Mary from the VA, I learned how AI will hopefully enhance my communication with veteran population. Great example of utilizing it for your role. Great job, Mary. Dave, Clarence, Tyler, Brian, just learn something. That means anything. We teach them anything. And this will be the best briefing ever. Jeff from FDA, it addresses biases in AI. Yes, it's not perfect, is it?
No, definitely. We'll talk about that. That's a key topic.
Yep. And Rose, if the live demo of the most advanced AI, I do believe Rose will have the best briefing she's ever seen before.
I think so too, hopefully.
All right. So please address this. AI's use in human capital and not just for hiring. Are CEUs available? Yes. All you need to do is just let us know that you want one, and we'll get you one. I'll get you the certificate of participation. Test from CMS. The civilian government employees permitted to use the AI tools for their work? If so, to what extent? What are the limitations are there? I don't know that that's completely defined yet. Is it, Jeff?
It's not, but we will definitely suggest some things to where you can be as safe as possible in the current circumstances, and point you to some places where there will be more information about that.
Nice. Michael from the VA, Databricks and other mainstream AI NLP. Wow, that's a sidebar, Michael. You have to take them machine written memo, all that stuff. We'll take that off the side. Jerry from the VA, does the federal government see any AI phenom, and is a slippery slope that will start taking jobs? Again, with the jobs, very, very, very interesting. Will cost any federal jobs? And then Victoria, do AI programs spy on users? Oh, very good question, considering some of the things that we see out there.
Short answer is yes.
Yep, that would be true. All right, so let's ask this question. Why are you here? Are you in the hot seat? Are you the one that's responsible for this? Are you trying to get your head around it? You want to be part of the AI dialogue? You pick as many as you want. Or are you afraid you're going to turn the corner and say, I'll be back? Or Will Smith is going to be there with iRobot. So there you go. And that's our attempt at AI humor, Jeff.
Or Tom Cruise, right? Because in his
That's
latest,
true.
he's working against the AI as well. So
That's true. You got Tom Cruise. Should have put Tom Cruise in there too, and probably James Bond, because those two, man, have you seen the latest ones? Man, he could have interchangeable. Pretty crazy. Anyhow, good stuff. So a little bit about DivIHN. Why? So DivIHN's been in the IT space for a good while. They have a lot of experience in cloud enterprise, on-premise cybersecurity solutions. Obviously, there's a little bit of cybersecurity issues with AI. They also have an intellectual property that they utilize and help the federal government with. They have a lot of contributions in with FBI, with different universities, and thought leadership in both cyber and cloud and AI. So community nonprofits as well. Founded in 2002, as you see there, they're SBA 8A and they have a GSA contract. And like I said, no obligation to buy from anybody. But hey, if you need some services, you might want to look up DivIHN. So with this, I'm going to end this. Go ahead.
Sorry to jump in, but news, I don't even know if you know yet, but our president and CEO just got his top secret clearance. So opens the doors to some secure stuff if
that is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. And you can share that here. Very good. So why are you here? It looks like this. There's a couple people that are on the hot seat. A lot of folks trying to get their head around it. They want to be the dialogue. And you have a couple folks that are concerned about what it might do. We have 34% that have been in the Gov Brief before. Welcome back, everybody. Good to see you guys. Always love to have folks that are there. So we have this next one for the polls, and I'll get to some questions. There might be some in there. What is your level of exposure to this? And with that, I'm going to hand this off to you. Stop sharing this bad boy, and you're going to take over, Jeff, and share that out. But have you tried it? Maybe you tried it a little bit. I can't believe there's nobody's never heard of it anymore, right? And think about that. AI hitting the space relatively recently. The concept of AI is one thing, but ChatGPT has really put this on the map, right? Right, Jeff?
Absolutely. I mean, about November or so when it first came out, I mean, it's been in the news basically every day since then, and many articles a day at this point. So definitely top of mind.
Many articles a day, and some of them even written by AI. Not just a few either. So yeah, well, while we're waiting on this, so the other part, tried it some. Very few are using it regularly. Fantastic. We're glad that you're here. And we'll make sure that, let me make sure, where are my Q&A? Somebody popped something. I thought somebody did something in somewhere. All right, I got folks that would like CEUs. That's fair. We'll get those. CPs, you can get either, because what we're going to do is we're going to get you a certificate of participation, and you just get that approved by your supervisor. And whatever that credit looks like is what you get. How about that, Chandra? All right. Shonda. I'm sorry, Shonda. All right, very good. And we'll stop this poll in 3, 2, 1, and boom. Jeff, you're on. Let's take us through this about talking about it responsibly, because we do want to be responsible, I think, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at our agenda here as we're getting into this, right? So we'll start with an introduction that provides some background on what AI is about in general, as well as how it relates specifically to folks in government. We'll do a couple of demonstrations, actually, that showcase both the power and the ease of use of some real-world AI solutions and some things that are kind of above and beyond as well. So, and then, of course, we will wrap it up with a quick look at what I like to call the darker side of AI, in terms of trust and responsibility and all that. And then wrap it up with some final thoughts on how you can start utilizing this amazing technology in your everyday lives.
That is fantastic.
So without further ado, let's get on into it. So couple quick things, AI from the government perspective, we'll start with this. So the National AI Initiative Act of 2020 became law in January of 21, and it provides for a coordinated program across the entire federal government to accelerate AI research and application for the nation's economic prosperity and national security. So the AI.gov website is a great resource that includes links to many departments and agencies that have useful information on the development and use of AI in the government space. So strongly encourage you to go check that out. Lots of great information there. Probably answers questions about what you can and can't do to some extent, and definitely, what's going on in the government around all this stuff. Here's a quick slide about an overview of some of the recent legislation that relates to the use of AI in the federal space. As you can see, there's a number of significant bills that deal directly with artificial intelligence, and a number of others that relate to it as well. Main objectives that span all of these really speaks to the whole purpose of our presentation today, which is about embracing AI in a holistic way while being mindful of the risks and threats that it can create. So clearly there's a substantial interest in AI in the government, and a lot of money actually going into trying to understand it and trying to use it and trying to put some regulatory framework around it as well. Speaking of, in addition to the legislative activity, federal policy continues to evolve pretty quickly these days, right? A number of initiatives related to the utilization are being implemented at various levels of government, obviously from the White House on down. So lots going on in the government space.
And just to throw in there,
yeah,
it doesn't matter which administration it is, the left, right, red, blue, doesn't matter. Everybody has concerns. Everybody has everybody's united, believe it or not. United in being able to help solve the potential challenges that we can all see, right?
Yeah.
As it comes down. So
absolutely, addressing both the huge potential, right, and the potentially very big risk as well. So let's go ahead and get the obligatory definition of terms out of the way. Both of these things are self-explanatory to an extent, but there's some nuances as well. So artificial intelligence, or AI, is the broadest term here, and it covers pretty much everything related to the notion of mimicking cognition. So, no actual intelligence is really needed at the most basic level, or at all in some ways. And some of the concepts around AI in general has to do with things like knowledge modeling, symbolic reasoning, and rules-based systems that, apply to different kinds of ways to solve problems using computers. Machine learning, or ML, is a subset of AI. It's a specific type of AI that uses large amounts of data to train a digital model of reality that can then be used for a variety of purposes. Different approaches and different algorithms for machine learning yield solutions to problems of different types, right? And we'll explore a couple of these as we're talking today and in the demos as well. And finally, deep learning is an even narrower term that's a subset of machine learning that applies to complex learning models, usually based on multiple layers of artificial neural networks, which you don't need to know what that means, but it's complicated as it sounds. And they're trained on huge amounts of data, right? And that's what ChatGPT is. It's technically called a large language model. And most of the other noteworthy modern web-based AI tools that you find out there are using deep learning trained on huge amounts of information. So awesome. Possibilities and capabilities are coming out of that.
We got Jonathan raised his hand. Let's see if we can get him to unmute. Jonathan, you there? You got a way to be able to unmutify yourself? I don't know if let's see what's happening. You there, Jonathan?
If not, you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, pop it in the chat if you got a question, or if you raise the hand like inadvertently, just let me know. I'll put it back down for you. He put it back down for himself. So that was an erroneous question for AI. There you go. You're back.
All right. So let's switch gears now and provide some context, for the dramatic recent advancements of AI. And we'll take a real quick look at the history here just to give you some context. So the origins of AI can be traced all the way back to ancient Greece, where myths and legends portrayed robots and automatons as intelligent beings, right? like many other knowledge domains these days, a lot of the foundations were laid by the great thinkers of the day, such as Aristotle and Plato and those guys. Fast forwarding a couple thousand years to the middle of the 19th century or so, and early efforts to create computing machines by well-known early computer scientists like Pascal and Babbage and Lovelace and Boole and others set the stage for pretty much all the advancements in computing technology that we've seen since then. The foundations of AI itself were formed nearly 100 years later in the mid-20th century, that's when the term artificial intelligence was first conceived and coined. And one of the best known leaders of early AI was a man named Alan Turing, who basically created the first general purpose computer. He also attempted to answer the question of how to determine whether a machine is intelligent in a way that we still use to this day, which is called the Turing test. It basically asks, does the system exhibit intelligent behavior that is equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human, right? So in other words, can it fool a human into thinking that the AI is a human? And interestingly, one of the earliest semi-successful efforts at seeming human came in the form of the first chatbot, which was called Eliza. Eliza is a program that took input from the user. You type in, a question or a comment, and it would look at that and apply a relatively simple set of rules, and then respond with a text output that tried to mimic a psychotherapist of the day. And it's pretty cool. We'll actually take a look at it here in a bit. But on a personal note, my very own first exposure to computers was when I saw Eliza running on a Radio Shack computer back when I was in elementary school. So I was instantly hooked, and that began my lifelong passion for and eventual career in computer science, and obviously still has me interested to this day.
Nice.
So after several periods of boom and bust known as AI winters, the growth of AI really started to take off after the turn of the 21st century. The early 2000s were characterized by the development of advanced algorithms and the availability of more powerful computing resources. And that's also when commercialization of this technology really got underway with the advent of things like robot vacuum cleaners and self-driving cars and that sort of stuff, right? And over the last 10 years or so, AI has basically exploded. Advanced techniques, including neural networks and generative adversarial networks, enable dramatic new capabilities. And interesting, a lot of the milestones in the development of AI have been punctuated by computers that can win playing games with humans, right? Ever more challenging games, beginning with checkers and then chess, and then Go, which is a much more complicated game than chess, and even things like StarCraft and Jeopardy. And one of the most impressive fairly recently is computers winning at diplomacy, where the machine not only has to have a deep understanding of the strategy and tactics of the game, but it also must actually outwit its human opponents in player-to-player negotiations. So that's a pretty big deal. And, I wonder what Dr. Turing would say to that, right? If it can fool humans into winning negotiations, it has indeed come a long way since the days of Eliza, right?
Just a little bit, and certainly a little bit from ancient Greece.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So now we've kind of understood the foundations of modern AI. Let's dig a little further into what the hype is really all about, right? The next couple slides have a couple different perspectives on areas where AI technology can be most useful today. So this is a general list of some of the most common use cases we see in the real world. And while some of these items do require, non-trivial investments in AI tools and solutions in order to realize some of these benefits, many of them can be implemented or executed with readily available models and things like ChatGPT. And in fact, the items on this slide with orange checkboxes are the things we're going to cover in the demo in a few minutes here. So we're going to actually do some show and tell about that stuff. And I would expect pretty much everybody in the audience, regardless of which agency you're from or what you're doing, to find at least a couple things on this list where you can see the potential value in addressing real needs and streamlining repetitive tasks using these AI-based solutions. This is another list with some more, different kinds of potential opportunities. In these cases, the state of the technology isn't necessarily as mature as the ones on the previous slide, but heavy investments in all of them, will yield even more new types of solutions in the not too distant future. Some of these things like modern military warfare, right, are pretty much exclusively the domain of the government space. And obviously there's a lot of controversial things about that, but, it's here, and it's, you have to, consider it and keep it in mind. Quick note on the last one on this list, which is known as general artificial intelligence. And unlike every other item on all these slides that are focused on addressing specific needs and challenges and fairly narrow, knowledge domains, GAI represents the effort to create machines that are smart enough to solve many kinds or even all kinds of challenges. This is considered the holy grail of AI research, and its achievement, will likely become or prove to be one of the most significant inflection points in human history, up there or maybe even surpassing the advent of the internet and other huge technologies of the last 40, 50 years. This is the kind of AI that all the movies that we already mentioned are referring to, from 2001: A Space Odyssey to Terminator, RoboCop, The Matrix, and even, like we mentioned, the latest Mission Impossible. So current estimates of when this, when GAI will become a reality are somewhere in the range of 2030 to almost certainly by 2050. So in the next 10 to 20 years or so, we'll probably hit that major milestone.
Awesome. Hey, Graham is asking to get unmutified. You there, Graham? Graham? I saw it work, sort of.
No.
Yeah,
there, Graham? There he is.
Yeah. No, I wasn't trying to cut off. Please keep going. I was just giving you a heads up that there wasn't an option, but it looks like clearly there is an option to speak. So thanks for that. The
option is just, you can raise your hand or just pop it in the chat, and then because I am the all-powerful AI in this briefing.
The HI.
Because it's definitely not real intelligence.
All right. So now that we've explored the conceptual foundations, let's actually get into doing some demonstrations here, show and tell some of this stuff. We're going to start with some AI language processing with ChatGPT-4. This is stuff you can all go do and try out for yourself. And I'm going to give you a couple different examples, and we'll actually see what this is all about. Let's go ahead and jump in here. So we're going to start with, before we get into ChatGPT, let's just, for a little bit of comparison, let's actually go do some ELIZA. So this is a current implementation of the ELIZA program from the mid-1960s. This is one of several universities that have this online for, availability and seeing how things worked back in the day. So, hello, can we talk? I'm asking Eliza, and she says, how are you? What would you like to discuss? I'm not feeling so good. Did you come to me because you're not feeling so good? Well, yeah. There's a lot of depressing news in the world today, Eliza. What do you have to say to that?
What's depressing is Erica says, I read the ChatGPT-4 passed the bar exam. and then Antonio says with an 80%.
Yep, absolutely, right. It's passed the bar exam. It's passed the LSAT. It does really well on the college entrance exams and all that other stuff. So yeah, kind of scary. So here, we continue our conversation with Eliza. The gist is, it's responding and giving you something back, right? But it's not really hard to trick or fool into, not really knowing what it's talking about. So let us switch gears and try the same thing with ChatGPT and see what we get from it, asking it the same questions. Oops, wrong one. Hang on. All right, here we go. So ChatGPT-4. Do the same thing. Hello, can we talk? And we're going to get, as we will see, a definitely more robust answer than we got from Eliza.
I
Of
like the
course.
way it makes it
Can I
look
answer
like
any
it's
question?
typing as it's doing it. That's
It
a
does
nice.
actually. I'll talk about what it's actually doing behind the scenes in just a sec here. But yeah, that's a key element of this, right?
That's pretty fun.
So I'm not feeling so good, ChatGPT. What do you say? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And so right off, we start with the disclaimer saying, I'm not a psychotherapist, right? So don't take what I say too seriously. But if you need help, here's where you go to get help, right? So it's already responding in a different way and much more, realistically. So there's a lot of depressing news, right? ChatGPT. I know how you feel. So it's trying to be sympathetic and it's trying to, really provide some useful things. One thing interesting about this, if anybody has tried ChatGPT, and I've done it quite a bit, obviously, it likes to create lists of things. So when you ask it questions or when you tell it to, give you some information about something, it typically responds in the form of an intro paragraph, a list of answers, and then a summary paragraph. Of course, you can make it do different things based on how you configure the prompts and things that you're putting into it. But that's its default in a lot of cases. And so let's go ahead and jump ahead here and say, you know what, tell me a joke. See if it does a better job of telling a joke than Eliza did. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Awesome, right?
Oh yeah, buddy.
So let's try a couple other things here. So, that's just basically a simple chat, right? And obviously you can tell right off the bat, it's a lot more comprehensive, a lot more responsive than, old school things like ChatGPT or like Eliza rather. So let's do something new that's a little different here. Let's challenge it a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up a sample resume here. Doesn't matter what this is exactly. This is not government specific per se, but it definitely could be. In this case, it's a mocked up resume for a software developer role. I'm going to just go ahead and copy and paste the text out of the PDF here, bring it over to ChatGPT and say, analyze and summarize this resume in its suitability for a software developer position. And I'm going to paste in all the content from the resume, and it's going to, scrolling all the way back down to the bottom here, it's going to pretty much give us a shortened summary of the resume. Now, it's already a pretty short resume, so there's not a lot it can summarize, but basically the gist here is that you can give it some instructions, you can copy and paste in a block of text or a resume or an article or whatever, and ask it to summarize it for you, and it will do a pretty good job most of the time of shortening that and giving you back an abbreviated version. And you can even, if you want to, in the prompt, give it some level. Do you want it to summarize at a college level or at a high school level or at a grade school level or in a specific style or something like that? By adjusting the prompt, you can make it do different things.
I've heard that I was talking with some contracting folks, and they've tested this. I don't know that they've implemented it yet, but they were in federal contracting folks, and they were talking about being able to use it to help diagnose how close the answers were to an RFP. So pretty
absolutely. Comparisons, summaries, regurgitations in different ways are some of the things that this is really good at, right? So all that kind of stuff, comparisons, lots of capabilities there. So that gives you kind of a gist of a couple of things. Let us take a little bit of a look behind the scenes, and I'm going to show you a different, actually, I think I already have it brought up here. So let's just go ahead and switch over. So also from OpenAI, basically a slightly less intelligent version of ChatGPT, but still using the same underlying technology here, is the OpenAI platform. And so what this gives us that ChatGPT doesn't is the ability to, choose different engines behind the scenes. In this case, I'm going to choose a complete engine, and based on the text.DivIHN.003 model, I'm going to turn the temperature all the way down here for a second. And I'm going to turn.
What does temperature mean? What does that mean?
Good question, Dave. I will get right back to that in a second.
All right.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask it to, in this case, write an introductory paragraph or introduction to a proposal for, let's not say government board of directors. Let's just say for a government agency here. to invest in AI technologies. And so go ahead and submit this. And it's going to give us back a response. And as you'll see, it's going to color code some of these words, right? And so now I'm going to say, okay, let's ask it to regenerate that again. So I'm going to, down here, I'm going to say regenerate, which means create a new answer to the same prompt. Rapid advancement of artificial intelligence technologies, blah, blah, blah. And if I keep on regenerating, it's going to give me the same answer every time. And that is because I have this temperature, as we talked about, turned all the way down to the lowest value. So temperature of 0 means effectively 0 randomness. If I turn this up to 1, which is kind of the default value, and now I regenerate this, we're going to see it's going to give me a different answer each time.
Wow.
And as I click it a couple times, it has to give it more thought to come back with an answer. And let's try that one more time. So this time it's quite different than it was the first couple times. So that temperature basically says, don't always pick the most obvious answer. Now back to your question, Dave, and what's going on here is these color-coded words are indicating the probability of each word. So all of this is really doing, what these large language models is doing, what ChatGPT does is string words together, right? And it does that based on its assessment of the probability of which word is going to be next, based on all the input that it's taken in from the giant chunks of content from the internet that it has been trained on. So it really, it seems intelligent. It seems in some cases like it even has a personality or something, but it really is just linking words together semi-randomly based on probabilities from its knowledge base and from its training data. So
can I throw something in here? So I don't know if anybody has done any work with neuro-linguistic programming or anything like that. Tony Robbins does a lot of that, did that years ago. And I'm looking at this and I see, first of all, exciting. Pull that down a second. I just want to say explosion, breakthroughs, untapped. All these words are highly kinesthetic words. So it's turning it into an emotional type of statement so that it appeals to an emotional state. It's really interesting how that's working.
Very complicated model behind this, determining which word it should put next. And obviously you can control the probabilities, and these other settings on the right here can further tweak how it decides which next word to pick for each response that it generates. But the gist is, at the end of the day, it's just linking words together. And Dave, when you noted that it takes a couple seconds as it's spitting out that answer, that's because it's calculating each word next and spitting it out as it decides which word it wants to put in this particular response.
Interesting. Real quick, Andy said, sorry I missed it. Is the site chat OpenAI.com, right? That's what we're looking at right now.
Chat.openai. So you can just go to OpenAI.com and then you have to sign up, for an account that doesn't cost anything. But sometimes it's not available depending on how busy it is. If you want to pay them like $20 a month, then you get the premium level where you can get constant access to it, and it's a little quicker. And then this one is a slightly different product from OpenAI called the Platform Playground, but you can also use it as well. So you can sign up for these things for free, and you can spend money if you want to get more robust access, basically.
Gotcha. And then Ryan saying, is the data entered in the prompt added to the model to assist with other generated responses? And I think does that go to your temperature question, Ryan? Is that kind of answered by the temperature?
I think the question there is it capturing the input we're giving it, and does it do anything with that, right? And again, I'm going to talk about that more when we're done with the demo here, but the gist is, yes, it will and can capture the input you put into it.
And better. And Antonio said that within the same chat, yes. So the question I think is a little expanded beyond that, right, Ryan? Is it going to take your information that you're giving it to then propagate whoever asked that question next? Is the question that you're asking, Ryan? Is that what you're
potentially asking? Yes. Yeah, I think that's the question. That is what I'm trying to answer, and the answer is potentially yes. So,
and real quick, Vicky has
we'll talk about it too in a second. Yeah,
Vicky, go ahead, and you there, Vicky Choi? Got your hand raised on purpose?
No.
It's okay if you didn't. That's all right. You have the ability to unmute, but go ahead. You keep chatting about this and about ChatGPT and the playground. Go ahead. If you want to talk, Vicky, just go ahead.
All right. So yeah. So The last thing I wanted to show in here basically is I told it to write a PowerShell script that calls the OpenAI API. So we can use these graphic tools on the internet in their websites, but they also provide an application programming interface, so you can write a program to call this. If you wanted to generate 100 jokes, let's say, for example, right, as opposed to going click, click, click 100 times and get 100 jokes back, you can write a program. Now, if you're not a programmer, that's okay, because ChatGPT is a programmer, and so you can ask it to write code, and it'll give you.
This is the crazy part. This
right?
is insane. What he's about to say is crazy. Go ahead.
So I'm not gonna. I won't go through all this, and honestly, it doesn't give you a ready-to-run program, and there's a couple things you have to tweak here, but just to give you the gist, I'm going to go ahead and kind of shortcut this a bit and show you what the results look like at the end of the day here. So, oops, hang on. Yep, here we go.
And Antonio says it's a hit or miss when I use it with SQL. Correct.
Right.
But the fact that it can hit in and of itself, especially with some pretty significant programming. Now, I'm a propeller head myself, sort of, but I mean, Jeff's a full-blown data nerd, right? So he gets in the code. I don't know the coding stuff, but I work with people that code, and it is crazy what some of the things that come up with that you wouldn't necessarily come up with yourself. That's the amazing part, right, Jeff?
Absolutely, right. And so I'm repeatedly running this program now that's a version of what I just showed. Now it's obviously the temperature needs to be adjusted behind the scenes here a little bit, because it's giving me the same joke a couple times. But the gist is, with very little effort and with input from it, I can now call its own API as many times as I want to. And I can even, get it to write me a program that does different kinds of prompts and returns different kinds of things and all kinds of cool stuff, right? So, all right, so let's go ahead and move on from all of that. And I'm going to do something a little different here now. So everything that we just showed, actually, let's go back to the slideshow for a second here. All right, so a quick recap here on ChatGPT. It's a conversational large language model by OpenAI that can generate human-like text based on a prompt, right? All kinds of cool things it can do. But let's be clear here, there's important things to understand about the limitations and the shortcomings. At the end of the day, like I said, it's just stringing a bunch of words together, and that can have random results, right? And this slide is actually from the ChatGPT site that's calling out some examples of what it can do, some of the capabilities, and some of the limitations. So keep in mind a couple of really big things: that it can generate incorrect information. It can make stuff up. That's called hallucinating in the AI terminology.
That's what we need, hallucinating computer.
Exactly, right? It can produce harmful results and tell you bad things and do weird stuff, right? And now they keep on changing and updating this and correcting some of these errors and improving it over time, but there's still ways to work around and get it to kind of go off the rails. So be careful, in trusting what it's giving you back. And the other thing to know, that it doesn't know anything about the world and events after 2021. So it purposefully isn't up to date on current events. So, it's got a limited knowledge of recent history and things like that. So that's important to understand. So now let's switch gears and explore an example of a custom AI solution, right, that was built specifically in this case for a client of mine that happened to be a membership association. Now, that isn't exactly a government-specific scenario, but this type of solution is very representative of what you can do when you create AI solutions with private data and information. Before we're done, we'll connect the dots from how you can move from this member retention scenario to potential use cases in the government world.
Real quick, Erica says ChatGPT makes up case law. So not only does it pass the bar, it can make up the law.
Make up the law, absolutely, right? So before we get into showing the solution here, I want to give you a little bit of the scenario because it's kind of important. So this organization was looking for ways to understand their member behavior and disposition so that they can make changes to how they interact and engage with their members to improve retention and satisfaction and ultimately member experience, right? So what we did is we took their member profile data and their transaction data and used it to build and train a custom AI solution that can predict the likelihood of renewal by member and year. So we face some challenges in developing this solution that are very common in the AI world, and it basically stems from the less than ideal quality of their data in their database. Before we could actually even use their data to train a model like this, we had to do some work to enrich and enhance the data so that the AI had enough, to chew on and make sense out of. The resulting solution outputs basically a custom spreadsheet that gives us each member and their predicted probability for whether they're going to renew or not for the year in question. And that takes into account the history of the past 10 years and what everybody else has been doing and things about them that it uses to decide who's most at risk of leaving and not renewing their membership, or who are the strongest and best members that are very likely to renew. And again, the same kind of solution, anywhere where you want to take a set of either individuals or organizations, you've got historical behavior data, transactions or interactions or something like that, and you want to predict their future behavior, that's what this kind of solution can do. The gist of how we do this is this process. And again, this is basically the way to create AI solutions and models. Now, what goes on inside each of these things is different in some cases, but the overall process is pretty similar. So in this case, and without getting super technical, we exported the member and transaction data from their association management system. We enriched and enhanced that data via a third-party information service by processing all those organizations through and saying, give us more firmographic data about everybody. And then we took that and transformed it and prepared it and put it into the format that the AI model needs to do its training. That's where the magic basically happens. And that's where you need, data scientists and data engineers to do all that. And then in step 4, we build and train different AI models using various algorithms and parameters. And in step 5, we evaluate those based on, a subset of the data that we know the answers for, and then we assess how accurate and how, comprehensive is its predictions. And then we ultimately take the most accurate model and we use it to predict the future, behavior, in this case, member experience and member retention and things like that. So let's go ahead and give you a quick preview. I'm not going to get too technical here, but this is a little technical. So this is actually a way that you can do both Python programming and AI development. It's called the Jupyter Lab. So within here, I can have blocks of texts and I can actually have executable code. So this is some code in Python is the language here. I can actually execute each block of code. In this case, I'm going to start with importing some libraries that we need. I'm going to kind of gloss over how we extract the data because that's outside of this. But the gist is, as I mentioned, we pull it out of the database using reports or queries or APIs or whatever. And we get a raw output file, kind of like this one here. And then we take that raw output file and we process it through an enrichment service. And we used one called Zoom Info that's pretty popular. Also kind of expensive, but very useful. And then we get an enriched data file that has, for each organization, things like its revenue, how long it's been in business or how long they've been a member, and how many locations they have, are they public and private, what industry are they in, all that kind of thing. And then we feed all that into the model, right? We prepare the data, gonna run some different code here. I won't do all this. Again, it's a little bit technical. We train the model. And then we evaluate the model and it tells us, information about how accurate or whatever. In this case, we get to be about 70% accurate or so. And then we ultimately use it to create an output file in Excel that has the information that we want. So real quick, let me pull up what the results look like so you can get a sense for what the results really are of that whole process. Sorry, I'm waiting for Excel to come up right now. It's taking a second. Lots going on here.
Waiting for Microsoft? Can't imagine that.
What are the odds? Oh, it's hiding behind my other window over here. That's my problem. All right, so I'm bringing up output version 2 here. And the gist of it is it gives us back on a erased all these calculations, but basically it gives us back a list of all the members. And it would have, if I clicked on all those things, given us probabilities for each of those. And we can sort this by who's most likely to renew and who's least likely to renew, right? So very quick view there, and I glanced over a couple things, but the gist of it is, it enables you, that kind of a model, that kind of a process, given the right input data, can answer some very interesting questions that are difficult, if not impossible, to answer any other way. Things like, where are there opportunities to, optimize resources and consolidate within an agency? Can we predict risks of internal misconduct based on historical data and trends? Which departments, programs, projects should we think about auditing based on their attributes or their, purpose or whatever? And again, the past history of which ones, typically we see some issues with or whatever. What are potential future needs for services and welfare and things based on demographic changes? So what's going on now? And then if we say, if this happens in the future, what would that do? And how would we be able to adapt and adopt to that, right? What are public sentiments? Things like, examining all the Twitter tweets or whatever it's called these days, or, all of the social media things that are happening. And we can say, are they positive? Are they negative? Are they neutral? Are they happy? Are they angry, right? And it can actually infer sentiment from those sorts of things. Which services or which programs or which laws or which candidates even, have the highest satisfaction or dissatisfaction rates, again, based on behavioral transitions and trends and things like that, right? So some very cool questions, very powerful things that this technology is capable of, right? If you feed it the right information. So let's talk about feeding the right information for a second, right? Now that we've explored a couple different ways that this powerful technology can be used, there's some important considerations, right? Public AI versus private AI. So what we just saw, ChatGPT is an example of a public AI. So you can go out and you can go use their solution. It's a publicly available service that you can begin using immediately, right? Without any preparation, really. All you gotta do is sign up and off you go. Conversely, private AI, like the ones that I just gave you a very quick glance at, are those that you build and train yourself or, with your own information.
So this is piggybacking on that. I think this is where there's somebody that asks the question, is ChatGPT something we can use in your own government computers? Potentially, but it depends on your agency, right? But the other part of that is looking at the data that is housed now. Now you're talking about data that can be housed within an organization, kept within that organization, and utilized within that organization, right? That's what you're. Yes. That's where you're headed. Absolutely.
Yep. Exactly. Right. And so that specifically is this next bullet point here about data sources. Public AI solutions like ChatGPT are trained using typically vast amounts of data that is sourced by the owning company, in this case, OpenAI, and often pulled from the internet, right? The vast amounts of information available on the internet. Private AI solutions, conversely, use private data, your data, and in this case, your government agency data, right? And not external data, not publicly available data. And that opens up a ton of new opportunities. You can leverage insights that nobody else has potentially. You don't really need any special knowledge of AI to use ChatGPT and other public solutions, while obviously significant experience is needed to build and create your own private AI solutions. When you use public AI solutions, it is very important to understand that they can capture and retain all the input you provide, which they can use however they want to. So that means that they can use it to keep training, keep making adjustments, doing whatever they want to do with that data, basically, right? Whereas private AI solutions, input data can be kept private, right? You can control that and limit what it can get used for. The implications on privacy are that you should not put proprietary or confidential data or any other intellectual property into a prompt or anything else in a public engine, right? That is potential breach of confidentiality, IP laws, all other kinds of bad stuff, because it's not safe, it's not secure, it's not private. If you put it into a ChatGPT prompt, ChatGPT can remember that, it can take that, it can use that to train or to do whatever they want, right? So very important. Yes, go ahead and use ChatGPT, but do not put any confidential, private, proprietary, non-public information into it. Anything, you don't put anything into it you wouldn't put into a search box, basically, right? Same sort of.
So don't put in, is this social security number correct for me?
Exactly.
Don't do that.
No private healthcare information, no private, identifiable, no PHI, PII, none of that stuff, right? Yeah. If you do want to use proprietary and sensitive data and intellectual property, you will have to create a private AI solution where you can control it end to end, and you know what's going in and what's coming out and how all of it gets used in the middle. So if you want to use proprietary data, it has to be a private AI solution that you invest in developing yourself.
And that goes to that question, can I use it on government systems?
Right.
The controls, that's going to be defined by the controls and operations of your agency as to exactly what's going to be allowed into it, what's going to be allowed for access, what you're going to, for all of the background, those, what did you call them? Libraries? Is that what it is?
Yep. All that stuff. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so, getting a little further into this, there are several different ways of looking at the myriad of considerations that are related to trust, risk, security, and privacy in the world of AI, right? We're going to explore these in a couple of different ways over the next few slides here, and hopefully that'll kind of clarify and highlight some of the most significant considerations. One of the earliest and yet still very relevant attempts to define a framework to address AI issues related to trust, risk, and security, and beneficial AI as opposed to harmful AI is known as the Asilomar AI principles. And it's a set of 23 guidelines for ethical research and development of AI in private and government and higher ed that were developed during the Asilomar conference in 2017, right? Since then, these principles have been endorsed and upheld by something like 6,000 now influential AI experts, researchers, and developers, right? Not everybody, right? I can't promise that all the big companies are following all these rules, but they should be, they try to, and when they do not, then that's when things get a little bit questionable, right? The Deloitte Trustworthy AI Framework is another notable example of a model for implementing AI solutions successfully and safely. By ensuring that all the solutions and use cases meet key standards along 6 dimensions of trustworthiness, the Deloitte framework helps you manage and mitigate the risks and while maximizing value, right? It helps ensure that you're adhering to best practices and staying aligned with, all the requirements that the government and other organizations are now, developing and publishing, right? According to this framework, for example, all AI systems should be fair and impartial and transparent and explainable, responsible and accountable, robust, reliable, respectful of privacy, and safe and secure, right? And note the icons here on the left. I chose those, to kind of highlight some of these things. And here's another example of a list, in this case, of 7 instead of 6 characteristics of trustworthy and responsible AI, in this case from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. I'm not going to read this one to you, but virtually all the same words are appearing here that were on the previous slide, other than kind of splitting out one bullet related to transparency and explainability. The icons are the same on this, and they kind of relate, so you can connect the dots on all these things. And the gist is, there's multiple ways to say this, but the same kind of core concepts here, right? And it's really about voluntarily adopting a do no harm approach and really trying to do the right thing, and being aware of the fact that inherent biases and inherent, attributes of the data used to train these engines can and will show up in the output, right? So all these things, some of this is easier said than done, but these are the goals you should strive for whenever you're both using or creating AI solutions, right? So that whirlwind tour kind of wraps things up. Couple quick takeaways, then I'll shut up for a sec. And Matt, Dave, sorry, Matt's not here. We can open up some Q&A, right? So real quick, we've covered an awful lot, obviously, right? I've been talking fast and trying to get through a lot of stuff here, but We've talked about lots of the ways that these things can be used in everyday work, right? With some additional investments, even more compelling and value propositions open up in the world of private AI that we mentioned. We've also taken a little bit of a look here at some of the ways things can go wrong and what you should be watching out for and keeping in mind as you start to use these technologies. I would encourage, we kind of already said this, but I would say go try OpenAI.com, go try ChatGPT or the Playground, sign up for a free account and spend some time getting familiar with this. Be careful not to put anything secure or private or confidential into it, but go see what it does. There's a lot of cool capabilities here. And of course, the other thing I would suggest is that, there are ways and give some thought to ways that bespoke custom private AI solutions can have even more meaningful and impactful, impact on your agencies and organizations. And keep in mind, those risks and responsibilities, because we don't want the world where we've got, the Terminator robots and Arnold and Will and Tom coming to get us or coming to save us from the AI for that matter either, right? So.
Yeah, love it. Awesome stuff. Yeah. All right, let me go back. I'll share my screen now. If you want to pop that, we're going to make sure everybody can get access to. If you have anything for Jeff, there's Jeff's email address right there. I popped in the chat, and I was answering for everybody because Antonio was saying how good looking I was on my webcam. Thank you very much, Antonio. He said, "What's your freaking webcam?" So I told him, and I wound up telling everybody. So my apologies for that. Any other real questions besides how I can get myself so snazzy on webcam? You can pop it in the chat, or you can raise your hand. We love to chat about those. And while we're doing that, I'm going to pop open this poll so we can get everybody out of here on time. We'll get you there. If you'd like to continue the conversation and you want to discuss something in your particular agency, I think there's one particular agency this year that had like 18 people or something that may want to have this conversation specific to within what you're trying to solve, right? So yes, every ChatGPT, when you start getting your fingers on that, right, Jeff, it'll blow your mind at first. And then all of a sudden you'll get this little twinge of, well, that's kind of weird. And then you'll start, being able to massage it a little bit. I have, can you go back to the slide on how agencies are using the AI, the first slide Eric is asking for. So I will stop sharing my screen.
So the question.
Just 1 second, we'll get that, Eric. You pull that one up. I want everybody to know that you're going to get the briefing presentation. You'll get a link to the video. And if you're asking for an agency / one-on-one meeting, team meeting within there to be able to discuss a particular challenge with AI, Jeff will make himself available. And here's his information. We'll pop that back up in just a minute. I'm going to stop sharing so you can pull that back up for Erica, who is asking for that. And for those of you who are asking to discuss AI in your agency, Matt or Jeff or somebody from DivIHN will get in touch with you for that. I promise. Go ahead.
Is this the slide that we wanted to see,
Erica?
Was it the list of?
Let me see. Where's Erica? And I'll get your question, Pamela, in just a second. Let me find Erica. Trying to navigate this. As you can tell, every once in a while, my navigation skills are suspect. Erica, let me find you.
And when I start sharing,
there you go, Erica. Allow you to talk. Go ahead, Erica. Is this the one you were looking for?
No, there were two slides. One was like a more advanced use of AI. Yes, is that
and this one, right?
Yeah, that's the more advanced one. Yeah, the one before that.
This one is the one I'm going.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Dave, you can tell them how, but we make this presentation available to you, so you can.
Bam, right there in the chat box.
Oh, there you go, right there, the link.
So you can get that for yourself, Erica. Anything you want to talk about specific, Erica?
No, I'm still trying to figure out how I can incorporate like ChatGPT into writing policy, etc. So just looking for ideas.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, one of the things that I do a lot, I think probably the thing that I use it most for is kind of an aid and a jump starter for doing any kind of writing, basically, right? So put in a kind of general prompt that says, write an introductory paragraph about whatever it is you're trying to write about, and it'll give you something back that's useful, and you can click it a couple times and have it generate different versions of that. And then I usually take that. It's, in my experience, it's almost never great out of the box, and I always want to tweak it and wordsmith it and maybe even rearrange it and rewrite it in some cases. But for me, it's a great way to get over writer's block, or to get started, or to get what are the most important aspects or considerations, and they'll give you, like I said, they'll give you a list of those things, and you can take it or leave it, and definitely double check them all, because it might make stuff up on you. But it's usually a good way to get I think jump started, or get pump primed, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of some input material that you can kind of work into whatever it is that you're trying to write or create. That's one way I use it, that it's very useful. Another way is research, right? So instead of surfing around and trying to identify a bunch of websites where people have written articles or said something about this, I ask questions of ChatGPT and say, what's the recent considerations, or what's important about this, or whatever, and can jumpstart or short circuit the research needs in some cases too. So that's just a couple of quick examples, but there's a ton out there, and it really is, prompt engineering, or writing a good prompt, is basically how you program these engines. And so it's worth kind of getting your head around what kinds of things can you ask it, or how do you write your prompt, or how do you give it examples of the style of output that you want as part of that prompt, and it will tweak and tune what it gives you back to hopefully better meet what you're looking to do.
Love it. And Pamela's asking, is someone cheating? Is someone cheating in an application if they use ChatGPT? Great question. What are the ethics for applicants and implementing competitions? All great questions. And that is not something that Jeff or I can answer, because that's way above our pay grade.
Well, I'll offer kind of my opinion and perspective on it, which is, absolutely what Dave just said. First of all, it's a gray area, and it's an area where the laws and the policies and the thought processes even are evolving and changing, and it's a big need, right? But my thought is, and my kind of approach is just don't, if you do use it, confess to using it, right? And maybe even explain a little bit about how you use it, because there's a difference between having it write, and newscasters and news people and journalism and writing and all that stuff is a thing. Using it as a research tool, or as an input thing, is different than having it do your homework for you, right? So as long as you're upfront that you used it and how you used it, then it's probably okay. It's not certainly okay, but at least it's much better than if you're hiding it or lying about it, or having it do your homework for you and then not confessing that you did that, right?
And Antonia says, are you cheating if you use a dictionary when writing your resume?
Exactly. So if you use it as a tool, it's fine. If you use it, write it for you and pretend that you wrote it, that's when it gets into very questionable, if not just flat out not good, ethics and legality and other things like that.
Yep. All right. Give me back this so they can contact you. And I'll make my screen available again. And Antonio actually asked a great question. When will OpenAI be accessible on the Gov network? Because they're blocking it at VA, right? So the answer is, we're not going to know that, but you can ask your systems administrator.
I would also suggest you go explore ai.gov, that site that we mentioned at the start. That's got a lot of great information. If it doesn't have answers there, maybe it has links to where you can get those answers, or some insight into how to track that down, because that's a great question, and it's also kind of changing at this point. So
and it is rapidly evolving, as you said, Jeff. Think about it. When was the last time you had something that has been so incredibly encapsulating between November, right, was when the initial one came out, and these advanced models they're coming out. And new models, different approaches to it.
Yeah, it's going to be every bit as disruptive as the internet was in the 90s, and as social media has been for the last 20 years or whatever. And this is the next thing that's that level of industrial revolution kind of thing.
That's a good word. I'll tell you what, awesome stuff, man. I always love it. And as we continue to build on this, because this has been a topic of conversation multiple times on GovBrief, and we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate everybody joining us in the interaction. And the levity too, right? We got to keep it light, otherwise everybody's going to be flipping out about the Terminator and the rest of stuff.
Life's serious enough as it is, right? Dave?
That's right. We don't need anything. True. Awesome stuff, Jeff. Thanks so much. Reach out to Jeff, and somebody will reach out to you if you ask for it. They'll be getting back in touch with you to discuss this within your organization. If there's anything that's really urgent, make sure you reach out to Jeff directly so it doesn't get lost. And other than that, any other parting comments for all the folks that stuck it out to the last final minute here?
I mean, go forth and use AI responsibly.
Responsibly. That's right. Fantastic. Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for all the kudos. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. And we'll keep you in the loop.
Yep. Take care.
All right. See you guys.